Welcome, everyone. My name is Deborah Reynolds. I am the Director of the National Council on Electricity Policy, and I'm delighted to welcome you today to our member update webinar. Next slide. This webinar is being recorded. The presentation and the recording will be posted at naruc.org/NCEP. As we go through the webinar, you can type your questions in the Q&A box, and our speakers will respond to them as they are able. Also, you can join the NCEP listserv to find out about future events. And what you do is you go to www.naruc.org/mynaruc, and you create a profile for yourself and select NCEP as an interest area. We hope you'll join us. This is a great group. Next slide. So what is the National Council on Electricity Policy? This is a unique and member-driven forum that has been in place since 1994, and it brings together state electricity decision makers from across the country, and we examine how new technologies, policies, regulations, and markets impact your states and the grid. It's composed of 6 member organizations and anyone else who is a state electricity decision maker. So that includes NARUC, the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, NASUCA, the National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates, NASIO, the National Association of State Energy Officials, NACA, the National Association of Clean Air Agencies, NCSL, which is the National Conference on State Legislatures, and NGA, the National Governors Association. Next slide. Just to give you a tiny bit of a preview of what's going to happen, you are going to hear from a representative from each of these member organizations, and they are going to tell you what's new, what's been happening, and they're going to provide you with a number of links. Now I want to talk a little bit about how NCEP is organized. If you'll go to the next slide. NCEP is overseen by an executive committee that has representatives from each of the member organizations I just talked about. This is our current membership, and we are really grateful to our executive committee members who engage, who show up, and who really help us out as we do the work that we've been doing. The next slide is on recent resources from NCEP. So most of our resources are found on the NARUC website for convenience, and it's naruc.org/NCEP. We have our 2025 State Agency Framework for Successful Stakeholder Engagement. That was a request of members, and so we have put that together. It's out there. We are also working on a framework for state agency collaboration on load growth. And down at the bottom of this slide, you'll see that there is going to be a release webinar on August 3rd. We're going to provide you a link to that in the chat, and we hope that you'll join us. This is the work that we did in Charleston, South Carolina in May of this year, and we really pulled together a lot of material from a bunch of our different member organizations. It's very good stuff. We also have some recent mini guides, and we have one on public utility commissioners and consumer advocates that was released in May. And then we have state agency coordination for energy bill assistance programs, and that one was released in February of this year. Provides some really great guidance and tools on how to do coordination for energy bill assistance programs. Finally, a couple of our member recordings. We do these member update webinars twice a year, and so our last one was in January, and there's a link to that. And we also did a load growth webinar series, which led into the work that we did at our annual meeting. And so both of those are linked here. And again, there are many more resources on our website. So the next thing I'm going to do is turn this over to our first speaker. Her name is Nina Suatake. She is the Deputy Director of Policy for NASUCA. Nina, please take it away.
Hello, thank you. My name is Nina Suatake. As Deborah mentioned, I am the Deputy Director of Policy for NASUCA. And first, let me tell you a little bit about NASUCA. We were established in 1979 as an association of utility consumer advocates. And since then, the membership has grown to 62 member offices in 45 states, the District of Columbia, Barbados, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica. And our members are designated by law to represent the interests of utility consumers. And then some of the features are that they operate independently of state utility commissions, and they represent consumers before state and federal regulators. And they also have the right to appeal state regulatory decisions. NSUCA also has associate and affiliate members to recognize non-statutory utility consumer advocates who are also active in this space. Next slide. And here's just a little map of where all our NSUCA offices are. We're hoping to eventually cover this whole map. We'll get there over time. But as you can see, NSUCA has a wide reach across the United States. Next slide, please. So coming up for NSUCA, we have our NSUCA mid-year meeting, which is co-located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the same hotel as the NARUC conference. It's not the same registration, so please register separately for our meeting. But we're excited about our meeting as we talk about many of the topics that are important to everybody currently, such as hyperscale load growth, changes in telecommunications and telecommunications broadband. We are talking about hyperscale load growth and cost allocation with hyperscale load growth. We also are looking forward to some DOE/LBNL training, which I'll talk about in a second. But then also coming up this year, we have our annual meeting in November 15th to 18th, which is a 1 week, unlike normal years where we usually do the co-located with NARUC meeting in November. We're pushing our meeting back a week because unfortunately we cannot join NARUC in Puerto Rico as much as we'd like to. However, our meeting will be in New Orleans, Louisiana, so we encourage you all to register for that one. Next slide. As I mentioned, NSUCA is going to have some technical training led by DOE and the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory at the NSUCA mid-year meeting on the Tuesday. And those topics will be speed to power, solutions for accelerating large load connection, rates, returns, and regulation, and what's the buzz about that. We also, in conjunction with DOE and LBNL, have a webinar series for training coming this fall. And all of those webinars and training resources are available on our website. Next slide. Which goes into all of the available resources on the NSUCA website. The front page of our website may be a little unprepossessing, but there's a lot of freely available resources on this website. If you look at this slide later, you can get access to our member list, which has contacts for all of our heads of offices, our policy resolutions over the years, which are downloadable from there. We have free training webinars on regulatory basics that are available, as well as all of our DOE LBNL grid training webinars, as well as some of our other NSUCA webinars that speakers have come to speak to our NSUCA committee meetings, and some of those are available online as well. NSUCA also hosts an employment job portal for offices looking to recruit new employees. I think, last slide. Last slide is just the contact information for me, the Executive Director, David Springy, and our Deputy Director of Operations, Nicole Haslip. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me directly. And I will now turn this over to Danielle.
Thank you, Nina. I believe my video should come up shortly. While that's happening, I'm Danielle Sass-Burnett with NARUC, National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, and I lead the Center for Partnerships and Innovation, which is our state technical assistance team. You've probably heard of NARUC, or else you probably wouldn't be here. But NARUC does, of course, represent all of the state public utility commission or corporation commission regulators across the country, all 50 states, DC, and the territories. And our members regulate electricity, gas, telecommunications, and water utilities. We have members Like I said, in every state, they are appointed or elected, 3 to 7 commissioners per state, and we also support the commission staff all across the country. Next. The Center for Partnerships and Innovation is the state technical assistance team. We provide support to our members on a wide range of emerging challenging topics and issues. We provide them with expertise, connections to experts and to themselves, and we provide trainings, workshops, events, site visits, and also papers and other types of resources and materials. We will release an updated fact sheet with all of the latest materials in 1 week. You can find all of our information always through naruc.org/CPI. Next slide. The topics that we tend to cover and are pertinent to the National Council on Electricity Policy are, of course, the electricity-related topics. So as you can see, we have a wide range of resources available across generation, transmission, distribution, customers, and also in cross-cutting areas like critical infrastructure, cybersecurity, resilience, and emergency preparedness and response. The items that have asterisks represent specific state working groups. So if you are a NARUC member, we would be thrilled if you would join us to dig more deeply into nuclear energy, transmission, comprehensive electricity planning, DERs, integrated distribution system planning, microgrids, electric vehicles, or resilience. Not a short list. Plenty of opportunities to get involved. Next slide. Some of the types of resources that we publish include essential resources guides. These are publicly available and are great starting points for seeing what kind of information already exists on a wide range of topics. As you can see here, we have 9 published, and next week we will add load growth to our essential resources guides. These provide a quick summary of foundational resources if you're just getting up to speed on a topic, and then it segments all existing NARUC papers, webinars, past events, and even partner information and websites by category or subcategory within each of the topics. So those are a great place to start to get acclimated to what already exists and where you might dig in if one of these topics is new to you in your role. Next slide. We also offer numerous webinars. Many of those are public. Some of them are for our members only, naturally. As you can see on the left side, just some recent examples of a few of the topics. They're very wide-ranging, as broad as the full spectrum of topics that we cover, of course. We just did something recently on predicting vegetation risk and grid resilience. Another one partnered with a couple of the national labs on data sets and tools to benchmark rates and analyze affordability, and one on GIS for transmission siting. Full range of topics. On the right-hand side, we also host working group webinars specific for members. Sometimes those are in partnership with NASIO, who you'll hear from next. Sometimes those are just for NARUC members, and those have wide-ranging topics like wildfires, demand charges, resource adequacy, and other things. Upcoming webinars, you will see registrations soon on the naruc.org/events list website for staff search call, which is for commission staff only. Get an update on the Homes and Here program. We will have public webinars, as Deborah mentioned, on the NCEP framework, and then forthcoming ones on all of NARUC's load growth resources, one on long duration storage, and you'll see many more posted for August and September coming up very soon. In less than 2 weeks, many of us will be in Minneapolis, Minnesota for the NARUC Summer Policy Summit with 1,000 of our closest friends. We have a full program. Registration is closing online later this week. So if you have been delaying your registration, please don't delay any longer, though there will be limited on-site at a higher rate. For NARUC members, we'll be doing a cybersecurity training in September. And then, as Nina mentioned, the NARUC annual meeting and education conference will be in November in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Registration for that event will open later in July after the Summer Policy Summit. And you can use the QR codes or the URL to find all the latest information on our events, plus recordings for past webinars. Next slide. We also produce numerous publications and resources. Again, this is a sampling. I'm not going to read them all to you. I realize that They're a little bit small, but something that you should know is we have produced resources related to everything from advanced nuclear to resilience, wildfires, microgrids, energy bill assistance, electric vehicles, gas planning, and more. And at the NARUC Summer Policy Summit, we will be releasing 4 more publications, and shortly thereafter a 5th. Plus, we're making some enhancements to our website to update our performance-based regulation tracker, which has been very popular on our website. We are refreshing that with updated information from the past year later this summer, and also a tracker of EV examples where commissions have taken action on electric vehicles. So you can find out what kind of action that is and what that all looks like state by state. We will also be releasing information on comprehensive electricity planning, energy storage, microgrids, and data center siting. So lots of different pieces that you can find, and the QR code should take you to our publications list. And finally, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the NARUC CPI team. There are 10 of us. Any of us would be more than happy to connect you to existing resources, talk about creating something new, make sure that you are plugged into any of the working groups that might be of interest to you. As I mentioned, many of our activities are public, and we are happy to have any state decision maker get engaged and get involved. I look forward to any questions someone might have at the end, but in the meantime, I will pass it on to our great partner at NASIO, Kirsten Verklaas.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Good to see everybody. My name is Kirsten Verklaas. I'm Senior Managing Director at the National Association of State Energy Officials, or NASIO. As NARUC, we represent the state energy offices across the country. Next slide, please. And each state, as well as the territories and the District of Columbia, has a state energy office, mostly designated by the governor. So we serve as a resource for and about the state energy offices through topical committees, regional dialogues, informational events, as well as resources. And we advance the interests of the state and territory energy offices before Congress and the administration. We are governed by a NASIO board of directors, which is comprised of state energy office directors, as well as on the executive board, as well as directors that serve as regional representatives of the 6 NASIO regions. Next slide, please. NASIO has a number of programs, committees, and priorities. We have 6 committees ranging from affordability, buildings, electricity, financing, security, and transportation. But we also cover a number of priorities by the states and state energy offices that are cross-cutting, which includes resilience, policy considerations, planning, innovation, workforce, sustainability, and solar, among many others. This is just a sample. Next slide, please. Over the next few slides, I'm just going to highlight a few of the NASIO programs and activities and resources that took place or are taking place. And I'm focusing particularly on the last 5 or so months that since we had the last NCEP webinar update. And so if you want to look at resources from previous years, you're more than welcome to check those out on the NASIO website. That includes all the publications as well as all the topics that NASIO covers. So many of you have been working on grid optimization technologies such as GETS, and NASIO launched a state and industry collaborative to support the implementation of those technologies in the spring. That will include the development of a framework to help state energy offices consider what those potential new technologies might mean to make the grid more efficient and how they can engage the private sector, the consumer advocates, the utility commissions on advancing and supporting advanced grid optimization technologies. We also have a really robust transportation program, and my colleagues on the transportation program have started working with 2 states, Oregon and Michigan, to pilot electric fleet engagement. We also have worked with other states on developing electric vehicle roadmaps across the country. And so if you're interested in those, please feel free to go to the NASIO website and check those out. And also in the transportation area, we convened an Intermountain West Electric Freight Symposium that looked at how can the region and the Intermountain West collaborate on freight electrification, because clearly transportation is, not just state specific, but is helpful if it's a regional approach. In the spring, we also had a very successful NASIO Transmission Summit in DC, where we brought together the private sector, federal partners, and states to discuss how to advance transmission across the country. Together with NARUC, we continue our initiative on comprehensive electricity planning in an era of load growth. We are about to release a number of updated roadmaps and flowcharts that look at how states, both state energy offices and PUC, can support comprehensive electricity planning across the distribution, generation, and transmission spheres. We also work together with NARUC on grid resilience. We support our members on grid resilience through a grid resilience implementation cohort, which works with the lead agencies on the 4101D grid resilience grants. We also are about to complete a wildfire resilience cohort that looks specifically at what states could do to address wildfire concerns, both from a programmatic, planning, as well as technology and cost consideration. And then my colleagues on the energy security team are working to release the Energy Security Academy, which will be an online learning platform that will provide insights for state energy offices and others on what kind of tenets are important when you're thinking about energy security and emergency response. Next slide, please. So in addition to publications, NASIO also has a lot of other tools. So one thing that we do is we have developed programs and policies in a box. Those are kind of ready-made resources for states that are considering implementing a program. And we just released a new one on designing state energy savings performance contracting programs to reduce energy costs for K-12 schools. We have another one that we released in the fall on grid optimization technologies. So if that is of interest, feel free to go to the NASIO website. That is a policy in a box. So we have both program, which is more of a programmatic approach, and then a policy in a box, which looks more at how to support policy development. We also put together two publications on geothermal power. One is to look at policy considerations and cross-state comparison, and then the other one is a summary of recent federal geothermal permitting bills. We have a number of other publications in the EV and electricity space, so I just invite you to go to the NASIO webpage under publications. You'll find a lot of different publications. One thing I wanted to highlight in particular is that we have just released our new updated National Standard Practice Manual. This was had a previous version, but now it's updated for 2026. We did a release webinar, which goes into many, many more details than I can do here on what the updates entail. But it looks at the benefit cost analysis of distributed energy resources from a number of angles. And since the National Energy Screening Project has found a new home at NASIO since the beginning of this year. This is in particular also geared to look at how potentially state energy offices can use this manual for policy, program, and planning purposes. And a number of states across the country have used earlier versions of this manual, and we're continuing to update this. I will say that we will also have a benefit cost analysis tool that will be released in the next few months that accompanies the NSPM. Next slide, please. Some upcoming events I wanted to highlight. We have 3 in person. One, if you are a state energy office in the central region, our last regional meeting will happen next week. We will also have our NASIO 2026 National Building Summit from July 29th to the 30th in DC. So if you're in DC, this is open to everyone. Please check out the website and the agenda and register if you'd like to attend. And then wanted to highlight that our annual meeting will be at the end of October in Boulder, Colorado, from October 27th to the 30th, and there will be registration links and a draft agenda posted at the end of this month. We also have a number of virtual opportunities coming up. This week, the NASIO Buildings and Energy Affordability Committees will host a joint webinar on extreme heat policy. Very pertinent, especially if you're in the DC region this week. And then we also have a webinar together with NERUC on integrating grid edge resources and demand flexibility into distribution planning, as well as our final NASIO NERUC LBNL distribution system planning training on stakeholder engagement requirements and practices in distribution system planning. Next slide, please. Obviously, I'm not the only one who's working on all of these things. There's many people at NASIO. This is just the electricity staff. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. And the full staff list can be found on the NASIO webpage. Next slide. And I wanted to do a final plug before I introduce the next speaker for state technical assistance programs. A state technical assistance program at LBLL, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. This is for state energy offices and public utility commissions. A number of the state energy offices and PUCs have already taken advantage of this, but this is a great tool to get technical assistance very quickly. There's a number of kind of tiers that range in hours, what the labs can provide. And LBNL is sort of the gateway. They also provide experts, but it includes also the National Laboratory of the Rockies, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and the Argonne National Laboratory. So there's a number of kind of current hot topics that the states are interested in, and any of these topics, as well as anything that you are needing help with from the National Lab, you are more than welcome to reach out to LBNL. There's a simple request form. It doesn't take very much time. It's free to any state entity, and you get absolutely amazing National Lab expertise. So I highly recommend, if you have any kind of technical assistance requests, not just to reach out to NASIO or NERUC, but also to go to LBNL. And if you have any questions on that, we're happy to provide you with a contact information at Berkeley Lab. And with that, I'm happy to hand it off to the next speaker, Miles Keogh, the Executive Director of the National Association of Clean Air Agencies. Miles, over to you.
Thanks, Kirsten. Oh my gosh, it's so great to see so many friends and people who I know on this call. I'm Miles Keogh. I'm the Executive Director of the National Association of Clean Air Agencies. I'm a former NARUC employee. I'm a former staffer on the National Council, and a friend and ally of all of y'all and what you're doing. NACA brings together the state and local agencies across the country that implement the Clean Air Act. Our local and state co-presidents recently just changed. They're now New Jersey and Reno, Nevada. Like Noah's Ark, we go everywhere 2 by 2, a state and a local to do everything. Our agencies implement the Clean Air Act. NACA exists to give a voice to those agencies and to provide peer-to-peer exchange opportunities, to develop technical assistance documents, menus of options, to weigh in regulatory processes, et cetera. Our primary purpose, though, has 2 parts: to protect clean air for all and to advance the capability and effectiveness of our state and local agencies. Right now, the person who is our NACA representative to the National Council is Kendall Stegman from the beautiful state of Oklahoma. And we've got another person in the hopper who's just about to join up. I can't say who it is just yet, but she's from the Midwest and you're going to love her. She's fantastic. Again, NACA serves as a sort of a convening vessel that brings together the agencies. We work with the Environmental Protection Agency, and with other kind of state associations and state environmental actors in water and waste and the like, to form policy under a sort of a system of cooperative federalism. NACA weighs in during the regulatory process on various regulatory and deregulatory policy actions undertaken by EPA, OMB, the FERC, and lots of others. We also track legislation and track litigation for our members. The Clean Air Act is a fairly litigious instrument. Folks sue over a lot of things on there. We also answer questions from the Hill and provide advisory stuff in that domain, and maintain good connections between our agencies and industry. We do most of this work through 12 different committees that address things like criteria pollutants and air toxics, mobile sources, permitting, et cetera. Right now, a lot of the technical assistance work that we've got going is being done through work groups that we've got going on. A few of our work groups are things like we've got one that we've stood up on wildfires and exceptional events. We had a pretty big exceptional event happen here a couple days ago with the fireworks display here in DC that had some pretty significant air quality implications. We have one on international and interstate pollution transport. We have work on monitoring technologies, on climate change, on AI use. We're standing up one in the next couple of weeks on data center permitting. And these work groups, they get together and they do webcasts that share information among our members and sometimes outside our members. They create guidance for those members. They create fact sheets and information, menus of options for policy development. And most of that work is internally focused, but a lot of the documents that we produce are published on our website, which Deborah has just incredibly helpfully dropped into the chat for cleanair.org. We also run these quarterly coffee break webcasts. Mark Buford from Northwest Clean Air, which is the part of Washington State between Seattle and Canada. He's our local training committee co-chair, and Kendall Stegman, who's the National Council rep from Oklahoma, run our training committee, and they have a whole bunch of stuff going on, which I'll touch on briefly, because it does kind of touch on some of the work that y'all are doing. These quarterly coffee breaks, their aim is to de-stovepipe the work that we do at clean air agencies. And so there are plenty of things that we are aiming to learn from in those. We bring in folks like NCEP, the National Tribal Air Agency, the Energy Assistance Boards, and folks from industry and elsewhere, folks like you, who we can learn from. So there's a pretty good chance that I'll be reaching out to folks who are on this call to see if you'd be willing to come help us get smart on what you do so that we can form policy in a more kind of holistic and informed way. In November, we're running the next iteration of our Leadership Learning Lab, which, while it's geared towards our members, actually draws a lot on the idea that there's a difference between leadership and responsibility. It's not just aimed at incoming air directors, it's aimed at fostering a culture of leadership throughout our organizations. And I think there's plenty that we can learn from organizations like y'all's. And we're hoping to try and export that Leadership Learning Lab instrument out so that it can be used across different kinds of modes of state and local government. We're running something called the National Air Quality Conference, August 10th through 13th in beautiful Omaha, Nebraska this year. We're working with the Environmental Council of the States and EPA and a number of others to put on this national meeting that'll look at emerging issues that affect how we implement the Clean Air Act and how we interface with the energy system, the transportation system, how we use satellite data, drones, how we manage the vast amount of enforcement data and permitting data that's out there using artificial intelligence, how we deal with the surge in data centers and permitting, how all this ties to public health, and how all this ties to continuing to advance the success story of the Clean Air Act. You can find out all about NACA at forcleanair.org, which I mentioned again is in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions. As I said at the beginning of my time here, I'm a friend and ally to the work that y'all do, so please count on me as a resource. I think the next person who's going to talk, go ahead and fast forward to the next speaker. The next person who's going to talk is Alex McWard, my friend over at the National Conference of State Legislatures. The NCSL does such amazing work. And Alex, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Miles. Like Miles said, I'm a senior policy specialist with the National Conference of State Legislators. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. NCSL
A-
is the
Alex,
bipartisan.
Alex, you're pretty faint. Can you move
Okay.
closer? Do something, something.
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
All right.
Talk loud.
So as I was saying, NCSL is the bipartisan organization representing the legislators of our nation's states, commonwealths, and territories. And really, our mission is to advance the effectiveness, independence, and integrity of legislators to foster interstate cooperation and the exchange of information amongst legislators. And so NCSL is a nonpartisan organization. We do not advocate or endorse policies at the state level or write model legislation. We do have a DC office, though, that does advocate on behalf of states at the federal level. But although we don't advocate or write policy, we still do provide training for legislators, whether that's by request for testimony or technical assistance. And then, of course, we also host a number of events that I'll discuss during this presentation. And I also want to mention that NCSL conducts research on all policy areas, not just energy. But I will mostly be sharing updates on the work that the energy team specifically has been doing. So we can go to the next slide.
Alex, I'm
Yes.
sorry, you are still fading a fair bit. If you could, I don't know what adjustments you can make, but
All right, let me see. How about now?
it's about the same.
It is okay. Um, Sorry, not quite sure what I can do here.
All right. Yell maybe. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, so apologies for this. Um, so this is our energy program right here with our policy areas underneath. A lot of you may be familiar, may have worked with Brian Law in the past. He was associate director of our energy program, and he recently departed our team just 2 months ago. But as you can feel free to reach out to anyone on the staff. Like I mentioned, our policy issues are listed below, so you can reach out with whatever questions you may have. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we host a lot of events, particularly for energy, or particularly energy-focused events. And so our Energy Supply Task Force is kind of our premier energy group at NCSL. This group started back in 2009, and it really works to bring legislators and staff together to discuss critical energy issues that policymakers are facing. And so it facilitates the collaboration amongst legislators to ensure a long-term and stable energy supply. And these members who are part of the task force, they typically serve on their energy or natural resource committees and are one of the primary voices on energy policy within their state. And this group most recently met just this past month in New Orleans. Then another group or another event that we have coming up is our Legislative Energy Horizon Institute, or LEHI. This is an annual program designed to educate state legislators and policymakers about the energy or the American energy infrastructure and delivery system. We partner with the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, the University of Idaho, and the National Governors Association fund LEHI every year. And so each year a new cohort is selected to participate in Lehigh, and this is basically a classroom setting event with a very comprehensive curriculum to help establish a really great base level of the knowledge of the energy sector for policymakers. And so this group will meet twice in 2026. Our first meeting is coming up this weekend, actually, in Richland, Washington, at the Pacific Northwest National Lab. And this first meeting is more of an in-depth overview of the U.S. energy infrastructure and generation system, while our second meeting, which will be in Washington, D.C. this November, is more policy-oriented with a greater focus on financing for projects and the regulation and market impacts. Then also coming up later this month, we have NCSL's Legislative Summit. And so this is an NCSL organization-wide event, which is the largest convening of state legislators in the country every year. Our last summit was in Boston last year, which was a record-setting event with just over 9,000 attendees. So we're really looking forward to Chicago at the end of the month, July 27th to the 29th. We have 4 energy-focused sessions at the summit, and so we have a session on cybersecurity, emerging energy technologies, distributed energy resources, and then also energy affordability. Uh, then a few of the other groups that are part of our energy program. So we have an energy security working group that is made up of both legislators and legislative staff that's focused on threats to energy security, whether those are physical threats, cyber attacks, or natural disaster related threats. And they'll be meeting in December this, or in the Denver this December. And then that group also meets virtually on a quarterly basis. Similar to that working group, we have another working group, the Nuclear Legislative Working Group, that is focused completely on nuclear policy issues. And they'll be meeting at the end of this month in Chicago right before our legislative summit. And then finally, we also have an energy staff network. Unlike our other groups, this one is specifically focused on policy or on legislative staff, who kind of serve as the main energy policy expert within their legislator. Um, and this group will meet typically once a year in person as well as virtually on a quarterly basis as well. We can go to the next slide. So our team has a number of resources, regularly publishing new reports. So our reports are kind of our longer publications that provide a more in-depth analysis of policy actions. Our 2025 Legislative Energy Trends Report was published just this past March. And so this provides an extensive overview of the state legislation we tracked during the 2025 legislative session across all our different energy issue areas. Then we also have a number of issue briefs and summaries that are shorter publications that provide a higher level overview or a 101 on a specific topic. And we have a few of these expected to come out relatively soon. We have a wildlife resilience toolkit we're working on, as well as an issue brief on the state approaches we've seen to large loads so far this year. Then we also have a number of regularly updated and maintained web pages. Most notably would be our state energy legislation database. So we update this on a regular basis, and this basically tracks all of the state legislation we've been seeing related to energy issues. And this was just recently updated this year with new tags, including a new data center tag, since, of course, that has been one of the predominant concerns amongst state legislators in the past couple of years. And we can go to the next slide. So finally, we do have a few newsletters that our energy team regularly produces. So we have News Reactor, which is our nuclear-focused newsletter that's released every month. Plugged In is more of our general energy newsletter that covers all issues related to energy policy, and that's also released once a month. And then maybe not as directly related to our energy work, but we also have a monthly environment and natural resources newsletter, as well as Capital to Capital, which is published by our DC office and focuses on federal legislation that could impact states. The next slide. A few other sources of media we have. So we'll regularly host town halls, which is basically a conversation between legislators and our staff. But we also have podcasts that we regularly publish on energy issues. Right now, we're in the middle of a energy affordability podcast series that's coming out this summer. The first episode was released just last month in June, and then we're expecting the second episode to be released at the end of the month in July. And next slide. So thank you very much for joining today. My contact information is listed here. But with that, I think I'm going to pass it off to Dan Loff with the National Governors Association.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. And for those of you who have stuck through to the end, I'm glad to bring up the rear. So it's good to see everybody on the line. My name is Dan Loff. I'm a policy director for energy here at the National Governors Association. And really excited to walk you through some of the work that we have going on this year. As you'll see towards the end, it's going to be a big year for us, certainly towards the end of this year and going into next with election season. But a quick couple words of introduction. So for those of you who aren't familiar with NGA, we are the membership association for the 55 state and territory governors. So the governors are our members, but we work closely with their policy staff across a wide variety of topics. I work in the energy program, but we have maybe a dozen or so other program areas that touch every aspect of state government and the executive branch specifically. And related to this group, we have folks who work on permitting and land management, public safety. We work with governors' legal councils, homeland security, cybersecurity, economic development, workforce, and more. And that puts us in a unique position where we can really work across silos within government, partnering closely with all of our colleagues who you've already heard from. So going to the next slide. Next slide, please. Here we go. So our energy team is relatively small but mighty. We've actually grown recently. We were very glad to bring Amanda Krentz and Cleo Carter onto our team. So now we are a team of 7 working closely with governor's energy policy advisors on the wide range of topics that I'll be talking about. Governor's energy policy advisors are largely directly located in the governor's office, with some who are dual-hatted as state energy officials and cabinet secretaries. We support them on a regular basis through monthly calls, regular email briefs that really dive into federal actions and activities of interest to the states, briefings and webinars on timely topics, and we're always available for technical assistance requests from our members. Going to the next slide, I'll dive deeper into our work for this year, some of the publications that we've recently released, and a few of our upcoming areas of focus. So with that, perfect. So in the past 6 months, we've released multiple publications that may be of interest to this group. This includes publications looking at aligning linear rights of way to deploy energy infrastructure, in particular looking at, say, highway and railway rights of way, and can those be utilized to deploy transmission and other forms of linear infrastructure. We've had publications on nuclear power based in part on a series of 7 in-state workshops that we ran last year. A few on energy security, one diving deeper into some of the foreign threats to critical energy infrastructure in the United States, and another that looks at the state legal protections for critical energy infrastructure information, or CEII, that states can put in place. We work closely with a few of our partners on the line, including NARUC and NCSL, to compile protections that exist across the country so far in a way that we hope will be instructive to others looking to put those in place. Most notably, though, I think is a paper that we released earlier this year based on a roundtable that we hosted last June with McKinsey, or I guess I should say 2 Junes ago, now that we're in July, with McKinsey, on opportunities to align economic development and energy planning at the state level. So this is really with the undercurrent of large load deployments, data centers, and their impacts to energy affordability and supply. There are real opportunities for state officials and for governors to bridge traditional economic development activities and energy planning more directly to ensure that energy is supportive of that growth, and that growth does not compromise the integrity and affordability of energy systems. So we've released a paper on that, and that ethos is guiding a lot of the work that we are doing later this year and into next year. Going to the next slide, we have a handful of ongoing projects and activities. I'll highlight a couple of these that I think may be of interest. Starting with the section at the bottom, these experts roundtables. So recognizing that there are some novel and emerging questions that state officials are wrestling with, we've been focused and leaning more heavily into experts roundtables, where we'll host smaller convenings with, say, 2, 3, at the most, maybe 4 dozen experts from industry, state, and NGO partners to really explore these specific challenges and see how governors can deploy solutions. We hosted one a couple of weeks ago on demand flexibility to integrate data centers and other large loads into the electric grid, which went in some directions we weren't expecting and was incredibly informative. Another that we're excited about is going to be later this year in October. We'll host another roundtable that will explore some of the supply chain constraints that will make it challenging to build out energy systems going forward, and really dive into whether governors can implement economic development and workforce solutions to alleviate some of those supply constraints. We also have ongoing work through what we call a policy academy, in this case on power sector modernization and resource adequacy with 4 states. So we've been in state for workshops with each of those, or with 3 of the 4, so Alaska, North Carolina, and Oregon. And others on the team are going to be leaving tomorrow to Colorado for a transmission workshop. So these are actionable and targeted projects where we're working over the course of the year to really support governors as they work to expand transmission. And in one case, also to really deploy energy resilience in their communities. So I'm not going to dive into all of these, but one other that that I want to call your attention to is that hyperlink on regional coordination for energy affordability. We are seeing just increased activity on an interstate basis where cohorts of governors are working together to address some of the real challenges that we're seeing. Two that I would highlight are the collaborations of governors in the PJM region, where they are actively working on PJM market and governance reform. And then in New England, where the governors are aligning on nuclear energy and a host of other pertinent topics. And it's been a pleasure to support both of those groups. So going to the next slide, our next major convening. There we go. Next major convening is going to be what we're calling our Energy Summit this year in Anchorage, Alaska. So for those of you who have had enough of the 100-degree heat that we all lived through this past weekend, we are very excited to go out to a cooler, more mountainous climate. And we're going to be hosting 3 events concurrently. The first is the one in the middle, our annual Governor's Advisors Energy Policy Institute. This is our convening of governors, energy policy advisors, and senior staff to discuss a wide range of pertinent topics. We are co-locating that, though, with our annual Energy Resilience Workshop for the U.S. territories, Alaska and Hawaii. So this will be the 3rd year that we've run this workshop, and it really explores solutions for energy security, resilience, and restoration in remote and islanded communities. It's been a very interesting project where we were in Hawaii 2 years ago, Puerto Rico last year, Alaska this year, and these are just a truly diverse group of territories and states facing some rather similar challenges. So for those who are interested, we do have travel support for states to come and join us, and we would really love to see some of you there. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me or my colleagues. My contact information is here if you'd like to know more. So on to my last slide. This is something that's going to be really guiding a lot of our work through the end of the year and into next year. As many of you are, I'm sure, aware, it is not just a federal election year, but there are 39 gubernatorial elections this year. 36 state, 3 territory, and 21 will be turning over because the governor is either term limited or not seeking re-election. So we are looking forward to welcoming between 21 and 39 new members come January. This November, we'll host a seminar for new governors, and we'll have a seminar for new governors where we'll bring the governors-elect together. And then in the spring, we are going to be convening the governor's new energy policy advisors and teams once they are appointed to really help them navigate some of the challenges they'll be facing. So I believe that takes me through the end of the presentation. Very excited for this work, and I'd love to connect with any and all of you on it. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And Deborah, I will turn it back to you.
Thanks so much, Dan, and to all of our speakers today. We covered so much good information. I see that there are not, in fact, any questions in the Q&A box, but I have one. Um, One of the things NCEP is focused on this year is load growth, and particularly resources to help states collaborate among their agencies, and there's some discussion also about regional collaboration. I wonder if each of you would pop into the Q&A, which I think everyone can access. What would be your top resource that you would suggest people look at from your organization about load growth? And if you want to come on and just talk about it, that would also be great. Thank you. Actually, I'm not sure you can put stuff in the Q&A, but you can put it in the chat to the hosts and panelists, and we'll copy and paste it into the broader group. So I'll just tag Danielle, if you're still on. How about would you say the Load Growth Resources webpage?
Indeed, and I just put that in the chat. There is
Yeah.
a NARUC Load Growth Resources for Regulators webpage, which includes lots of resources, trainings that are available for everyone, and also NARUC's filings to FERC on this topic. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then I think, Nina, I see that you have one you're suggesting.
Hi, yes, we have a couple of data center webinars, focused webinars on our DOE LBNL training webinar resource list that I linked right there. Also, our upcoming meeting will have a number of panels on low growth. This is the Minneapolis meeting. And NSUCA is working on a resolution on hyperscale load growth, but it's not ready for prime time yet, but it is something we're also working on.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think Dan has, oh, no, Kirsten, I think you're next.
Thanks, Deborah. Yeah, NASIO did a Powering Up Data Centers webinar series. I put the link in the chat. It's on our energy load webpage. And so I think that has a lot of good information on sort of the data center load growth. This was done over the fall, so slightly I wouldn't say outdated. I would say maybe slightly behind the times, but still a really good resource to kind of get up to speed if this is a topic that's new to anyone who's maybe joining a state energy office, PUC, or other member organization.
Cool. And then I see one from Dan.
Yeah, so a couple of items. One is the energy plan, or yeah, the energy planning and economic development paper that I'd referenced, which I linked to earlier. We're also working on a database of governor's actions to address data centers and load growth. For anybody wanting to go navigate our website, my colleagues working in our legal counsel's teams and economic development teams have also been working quite a bit on policy related to artificial intelligence and data centers in the states. So I'm not as familiar with those resources, but I know they are out there, and they may be of interest if for anybody more broadly working on this topic.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I do not see one from Alex, but we will not hold it up while we wait. Alex, there you are.
Yeah, our load growth specific resources are coming soon, but I will drop in the chat. Our database, of course, is always a great resource that I highly recommend. Just check out.
Excellent. That's the energy legislation database.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a great resource. Several people have noted it to me. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for this great this great webinar. We covered so much stuff. I was taking notes about things I want to follow up on. And I think that's it for today. I will just tell you to remember to sign up for the August 3rd NCEP framework release webinar, which will be on load growth. There is a focus on very large load like data centers and large manufacturing centers. But also these are ideas that anyone can use anywhere. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.